Let's talk primatology. So you are an ape, you're a great ape, and we are the last hominins of the great apes. All the rest of the hominins died out, being Australopiths, Homo erectus, Neanderthals, Denisovans. There's just us. But the other great apes that we have left are the chimpanzees, Pan troglodytes, the bonobos, which are Pan paniscus. We also have gorilla, which is gorilla is their species name. And then we have pongo, which is the orangutan. Those are the great apes. So chimps, bonobos, gorillas, orangutans, and us. That's all that's left. There's also one more type of ape, which would be a lesser ape. Technically, it's not great ape. It's a lesser ape, but an ape nonetheless would be the gibbon and siamang. And those things are like the really long, lanky, like long-armed things that you've seen at zoos, or like little monkey you put around your neck. It's actually an ape because it has no tail. It is a gibbon or a siamang. One way, hold up, here we go. So everyone calls everything a fucking monkey. I hate that. It is not everything is a monkey. Technically, a simian is a monkey, I guess, but there's a very strong and staunch difference between apes and monkeys. Do you have a tail? No. Does a chimpanzee have a tail? No. Does an orangutan have a tail? No. Does a gorilla have a tail? No, those don't have tails either. Gibbons, no, they don't. Those are apes. Apes also make nests. Who else makes nests? The other apes, yeah, I just said that. But humans, we make a shit ton of them. I'm standing in one, a giant nest. Apes like to make nests. That is an ape thing. Monkeys have tails, and they live in large, usually colonies or families. And it's a lot of population. They forage. They can eat insects. They can eat fruit. But apes are very different, and they're much more, I wouldn't say intelligent, but they're much more socially complex. Just the way that I'm talking to you right now is extreme social complexity. Apes do that better than monkeys, but monkeys are still primates. Apes are primates, and there's other primates like the lemurs and the tarsiers.
The tarsier must stare straight ahead and swivel its neck to look. Holy crap, did you see that? It's like exorcist shit.
Like the eye, I think there's that weird like thing. Like those things they freak me out, to be honest. Those are primates. However, there's this whole idea of sentience and sapience, right? And I got a lot of people on TikTok that were like, I think you mean sentient. No, I meant sapient. It's a word. They're sentient, like your dog is sentient. It knows it exists, but it doesn't necessarily know, like, think, therefore I am. It just knows, like, I need to eat. I can see, like, I can smell my own smell when I pee. Like, dogs know that. Elephants, though, dolphins, whales, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, humans, and I think some magpies. Can identify themselves in a mirror. And this is a controversial test because it, one, got a fast nest. When you're 3 years old or 2 years old, humans are able to pass this. And like the researchers will put like a little piece of paint on the baby's face. It will look in the mirror and be like, oh. And it realizes that that's me because they're touching the thing and they feel it being touched. Like, okay, that's me in the mirror. And like by 2 or 3 years old, I think babies are able to figure this out. They do this with elephants. Elephants will start to touch it with their trunk and be like, whoa, this is crazy, dude. Look at dolphins.
And turns the mark towards the mirror, like he's trying to take a look at what's been done to him.
They'll start swimming and freaking out. It's interesting.
And what's funny is we recognize this because it's so similar to what kids do, what chimps do. I mean, it's amazing. And they go through the same stages. These are animals that have been separated from us from 95 million years of evolution. Big brains, processing things in similar ways.
And they do it with chimpanzees.
This 3-year-old chimpanzee has never seen a mirror before.
When chimps see themselves in mirrors for the first time, they naturally assume it's another chimp, the way a human being who's never seen themselves before does, and begin to play with the mirror image.
They figure it out. It's interesting. And then they start to play with themselves in the mirror.
She notices that something has changed. Her hand goes to the mark.
It's fascinating, right? However, there's also the idea that dogs and cats who don't pass this test, they don't really rely on visual vision, or visual senses to see the world, right? They use scent and smell and touch and taste. And a dog can smell its own smell. It knows its smell. So therefore, dogs are, in a sense, sentient. Sapience, though, is different. Sapience, in my mind, is the ability to use tools, ability to empathize, and the ability to be human. It's a very hard line to draw, but we know the great apes have this ability to be sapient. There's somebody in there. When you look at a chimpanzee and look into its eyes, there's somebody in there. There is somebody in there. And like there's no denying that for me. There is somebody in there. You can look in your dog's eye and be like, there's somebody in there too, but like what are they thinking about? They like want food, they want to do this, they want to go outside, they want to pee, they want to play, they miss you. That's great. But a chimpanzee, like I think, can straight up just contemplate things. Like they have emotional intelligence, they mourn for like their dead. Elephants do as well. Interesting stuff. A lot of people though will debate this and say that I don't think they're human. Humans are human. Neanderthals were human. Denisovans were human. Chimpanzees are not human. They're not sapient. I would say no. I think they're sapient. And here's the thing, guys. Even if they're not, even if chimpanzees aren't human, if gorillas aren't human, if orangutans aren't human, or gibbons aren't humans, or bonobos too, I'll just throw them in with chimps, right? We won't be able to suss that out much longer if they're all gone. This is why I'm a huge proponent of like funding chimpanzee research and bonobo research and gorilla research and these foundations and these habitats and stopping deforestation and climate change, because like I want to preserve them. There's not many of them left to preserve. So we can't even have this debate about what is human or what's not human if there's no more of them left. So, like, the next time you see a chimpanzee or you pass by a zoo and you're like, I haven't been to that zoo, go if there's a chimpanzee. Look at it. You can get into all sorts of ethical debates. Should chimpanzees be in zoos? Should they be wearing diapers at Doc Antle's house? Should they be doing this? Should they be doing that? If they're not being shot in the woods, it's good for me. There's different levels of how I think chimpanzees should exist. I think, personally, living in a zoo is probably safer than being out in the wild being poached. However, I want them to live in the wild, preferably in a safe area that's protected, or I want them to live in captivity, maybe not in a zoo, but in a research sanctuary in which they can live a happy life. And there's this a happy and enriched and fulfilling life, right? Where they can... It's hard, because if we leave them out in the wild, they're going to get poached to death, and they're going to lose their environment, and they're going to die. If we leave them in zoos, they suffer. They're people. They're stuck in a fucking cage. And one of the hardest things I've ever had to witness, or not, I mean, I witnessed it. One of the hardest things that's ever hit me was through all of Tiger King, the entire documentary. Like, it's all fucked. Like, the way those animals are treated, there's just, like, it's terrible. But at the very end of it, he starts expressing his regret and remorse for things that he's done. And one of those things was that he left these two chimpanzees separated in these cages for years. And you can see him almost crying when he says this, but he finally let those two chimpanzees out.
Probably one of the hardest days of my life.
To be near each other, and they started hugging each other and like holding each other and caressing each other, and were so happy.
They sat in cages next to each other for over 10 years. And we moved them to the Great Ape Center in Florida. And in 2 days, they were out in a big yard hugging on each other.
That's because they're human. They want to be with other people. They're social creatures that need that to survive. if you let a person grow up without interacting with any other person, they're going to be cognitively and socially a little off. And chimpanzees, they need that same thing. So these poor chimpanzees were just separated in metal cages their whole lives while people just came and oogled at them. And he finally let them together.
Did I deprive them of that for 10 years? Yep. I deprived them of being chimpanzees.
And that like hit me like a ton of bricks. Because like I want big tigers to be safe and rescued, and like I want that whole trade to just stop. But like cats are cats. These things are they're our cousins. They're our brothers. Like chimpanzees, there's not many of them. Like just save all the animals is what I'm saying. But there's not many. We're gonna specify one and put some research into a bunch of them. Save the apes. They're our human friends, and like we could learn more about ourselves if we studied more about ourselves. And the only way to do that, and the most important thing we can do to do that and study ourselves, is to preserve what little bit of humanity is left in those creatures. And like looking into a chimpanzee or studying apes is like, it's like a glimpse into the past of like what we were. All the hominins that came before us were like an in-between of chimpanzee and human. Like not in terms of like they just went the boop boop to that's what they were, but like they were an ape that locomoted a similar way in between there. They have social structures just like that. They use tools. It's creepy in a way when you look at a chimpanzee because you're like, that thing is like so human. And it's true, they are. So I'm just a huge proponent of like saving them. Because if they're gone, that's a whole that like humanity. Like we're losing our human history, and we're losing a way in which to like further understand ourselves and to be better humans. I can't. I'll just keep rambling about this, but like chimpanzee, apes, and monkeys to an extent. But I will say the great apes are human beings, and I believe they deserve the rights as those. And maybe not, the right to vote or to have a driver's license per se, but they have a right to live a life of dignity, not just in some zoo being oogled at all day in a shitty enclosure. They deserve to have some enrichment, they deserve to be protected, and they deserve to be studied and have rich interactions with other chimpanzees and people if they want, if that's safe and that's good to do. So I guess this rant's kind of over. I'm just saying I really think apes are cool, and like you should too.